And welcome back to the show, everybody. So many things to talk about with our next guest, Dan Hicks of NBC Sports, who, by the way, in my humble opinion, is one of the best play-by-play announcers on network television and has been doing it a long time. And his versatility is amazing. We just heard him on the Olympics with our buddy Rowdy Gaines. He'll be on the PGA Tour this weekend. And then after all the playoffs are over in the President's Cup, he'll be on Notre Dame football. And Dan has this uncanny knack of impeccable timing, which is really anticipation, and his voice gets excited at the perfect moment. And if you YouTube Dan Hicks, some of his calls, winning calls, no matter what sport, is really amazing. And he joins us now. Dan, thanks for being on, first off, and I mean everything I said there. I think you're one of the best, my friend. And listen, I wanted to get that out there, you know?
I appreciate that, Doug. Thanks. That's really nice of you to say. I have had the opportunity to do a lot of different types of announcing, which has, in turn, like you mentioned, a lot of different gears to them all.
Yeah, right.
Which makes it a lot of fun. But I've also had the privilege to be a lot of times in the right place, right time, right athletes, right moments. So you're just hoping you can enhance those moments. So first of all, good to see you. Thanks for the intro, and excited to talk to you.
Yeah, we'll get to golf in just a minute, and obviously I'm busy with golf, but let's rewind a little bit to the swimming in the Olympics. Every 4 years, so many Americans get excited about swimming, and you guys bring to life, you and Rowdy, and obviously we lived through the Michael Phelps era, which was amazing, and now you have Katie Ledecky and so many others. Dan, I mean, obviously swimming is something that is it's not a big ratings thing. In fact, it's not even televised much except for the Olympics. But man, when you guys have it in the Olympics, it takes center stage, Dan. It's really good stuff.
It's a lot of fun. Just to give you an idea of how the sport, though, has changed, you mentioned Michael Phelps. When I first started doing Olympics with Rowdy, he would maybe do, swimming trials once every 4 years along with the Olympics, maybe a couple of swimming events a year, maybe a World Swimming Championships. But after Phelps did what he did, swimming did gain in popularity where Rowdy's doing, 15, 17 swimming events a year. He now does the NCAAs, so they've kind of gained in popularity, and that's had a lot to do with television kind of expanding with some platforms as well to give the sport an opportunity. But you're right, for the most part, when we come in there and parachute into your living rooms every 4 years and have all these swimmers that no one knows, for the most part, they know they're Michael Phelps and they're Katie Ledecky a little bit, but for the most part, we're just introducing America to all these athletes, and to be able to bring those personalities and dreams alive with a guy like Rowdy, who's got more energy than anybody I've ever worked with.
Right.
Been, a real blessing. We just did our 8th Olympics. We're set to do a 9th in LA in 2028, and it's been a heck of a ride with Rowdy, I'll tell you that. He's the heart and soul of what we do.
Well, I live in Alabama, and obviously Rowdy went to Auburn, so War Eagle out there in honor of Rowdy Gaines. And going back to LA, I know is big for him, gold medal winner. I just think the chemistry that you guys have, and I know you're close friends, and that obviously helps and comes across on television, but I don't know, together you guys are quite the tandem. And listen, that just doesn't happen. It takes time, and you guys have developed something very, very special.
Yeah, I think Rowdy figured it out. He actually did the math, and we've done over 2,000 races together.
Wow.
It's crazy to think about. All that adds up, all the prelims, all the trials and world championships and everything that we've done. So you're right. There's nothing that replaces reps with somebody. But at the same time, we really hit it off at the beginning. I can remember 1996, which is the first Olympics we did in Atlanta. And I just sensed that we had a rapport, we had a rhythm together, and that's only improved through the years. And Rowdy has become somewhat of he has become a household Olympic name.
Yes.
He's got definitely a unique style to how he broadcasts, and I'm there for the ride. But we know what the other guy's going to say before he says it, and there's no replacing that. Like in a 50 meter race versus a 1,500 meter race, they're very different. And there's these cadences we have. And again, we're sitting next to each other, so I'll point to him or we'll make eye contact to where we know not to step on each other. But I like to give Rowdy as much room as he can, as long as he stays out of the last 5 meters of the race. That's the rule that has taken me 8 Olympics to kind of nail down with Rowdy. He's pretty good at staying out of that 5 meters at the last. But if you listen back to some of the races in China, in Beijing, he was all over it. We were all over it. It's kind of also what makes it fun is the not only the crashing of Michael Phelps into the wall to win by 100th of a second, but Rowdy and I all over each other having a good time. So it's been a lot of fun.
And Dan, I was reading you guys called every one of the 28 medal races for Michael. I mean,
Yes,
that's
yes.
amazing.
Called all 28 Olympic medals, and we've called a couple that he hasn't medaled in. Like his first Olympics in 2000, he was 15 years old, and he finished just off the podium in his signature event, the 200 fly.
Wow.
So we have literally done every single Olympic race that Michael Phelps, and I think there's only 2 or 3 that he didn't medal in. He made all these finals, which is crazy, and he won 28 medals, 23 gold. So that is what I'm alluding to when I say right place, right time, because to follow the arc of a guy like Michael Phelps from start to finish as a gangly 15-year-old to, what he did in his 5th Olympics in Rio, and now joining us in the booth for his own cameos. You can't write it up any better than that, to have a guy like Michael Phelps along for the ride.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I met Michael at the Ryder Cup a few years back, and man, he loves golf. I mean, he's crazy about
every time I see him, it's like, hey, I'm doing this with my swing. I'm playing here and playing there. The guy's absolutely just absolutely a golf maniac.
Yeah, he really is. I'm not sure his physique is perfect for golf, but he loves the game, needless to say. Let's talk golf, because you're busy with the playoffs, and I thought last week when I was in Memphis, the conclusion was terribly exciting with Hideki going birdie and pulling the round out of the fire, and Nick Dunlap needing a par to make the final 50, the 20-year-old. I mean, Dan, after 18 years and a lot of tweaks, do you feel the playoff format now is where it should be? I mean, it was pretty darn exciting last week.
Yeah, we were talking about that last week, and we revisit the topic every time we hit the playoffs. And I was remarking to Terry Gannon and some other guys as we were sitting around talking about the playoffs and just, and answering the question that you just asked. I can't think of anything, or I'm not smart enough to think of anything that is better than the system they have within what they're trying to accomplish with a playoff system. Now, I think Scottie Sheffler brings up a good point when he said and remarked before,
right.
The St. Jude championship, that, hey, it's kind of silly to think that, it's this is, the winner of this is the best guy for the season. I see what he's saying, but at the same time, you got to get there. You got to get to that position, and you got to get to that position to have a chance. And you get to the Scottie Scheffler position, which will probably be a 2-shot lead heading into the Tour Championship. But I get what he's saying. But it's a lot like other sports and playoffs. You're one and done. The NCAA tournament, the NFL playoffs, all the NBA playoffs, which is more of a series of games, but nonetheless, it's one and done, and I cannot think of a better way to do it. The only other formula tweak I would think would be, can we bring match play in to the Tour Championship? Because I think that I don't know how much that the guys beyond the 5th, 6th, 7th positions going into the Tour Championship, I just don't know how much of a chance they have to come back that far. And I think that what you end up seeing is on Sunday a lot of guys that have no chance, and you want to have everybody that you're seeing on television for the most part, or the best chance of having a chance to win it all. So maybe we have it partially stroke play at the Tour Championship, and you have some sort of staggered start there to get into a match play bracket. And by the time you get to match play, I know the fear of television executives and some other people involved is that, we're not going to have exactly the star players. But when you get a Tour Championship and you've got those guys gathered there anyway, I think the chances are you're going to have a pretty compelling ending, even if it's to 4 or 2 guys at the end in match play. I think that might be something, the only thing I can think of that might improve the whole formula. And
I thought it was, and Scottie was somewhat tongue-in-cheek, maybe somewhat serious when he said they call it the season-long race for the FedEx Cup. And he said, in essence, it's the 3-week sprint to the FedEx Cup.
Yeah.
And there's something to be said for that, because he's going to have a huge lead regardless of what happens this week going into Atlanta.
Yeah. I think he's got a good point. And he's been disappointed he hasn't brought his best game to Eastlake. And I tell you what, enjoy this guy, because what you're seeing is even better at times than Tiger ever played during the stretch. Now, can Scottie Sheffler keep this going for 15 years like Tiger did? I don't know. And can he pull out, close to 15 major championships? We don't know the answer to that. But what he's doing right now is that special. And I can see why he might be a little disappointed. He plays so much better than everybody else does during the course of the season. And so far, he hasn't had a FedEx Cup title to show for it. But listen to this, Doug. Let's just say he wins the FedEx Cup title this year. I was talking to this with our crew the other day. If Sheffler wins the FedEx Cup title this year, think about the season that he will have had. Maybe he'll pick up another win to make it 7 wins on the PGA Tour. But to go along with that, a major. To go along with that, an Olympic gold medal, which you only get the chance to win every 4 years, obviously. Who knows if he'll ever have a great shot to win one of those again? We don't know. But that's a real kind of needle in a haystack thing to have in your resume. And then to win the FedEx Cup title with all these great players, I don't think, if he does that, I don't think we'll ever see a season quite like it. So I think that's exciting to think about, and to see if Sheffler can kind of put the period on this incredible season. I think it'll be a season that Tiger obviously never had, and quite frankly, I think you'd be really far-fetched to think anybody's ever going to have this kind of season again with all those titles.
Oh, totally agree. I mean, the Masters, the first guy to ever go back-to-back at the Players, and you throw in a gold medal.
I forgot about the back-to-back Players thing. Yeah, I mean, that's
right.
Incredible.
And he got emotional at the Olympics. You saw what that meant for him, right? And he came from 4 back. He was 5 behind with 9 to play, and rallied to beat Rahm and some pretty big names. And so, it's a season for the ages. There's no question. When I walk with him, Dan, inside the ropes, I mean, his excellence, when you see it up close, and people say, isn't it boring to watch him? I'm like, no. I mean, this is a guy who's at the very top, and he's created a gap between him and Xander and then the rest of the guys, right? I mean, he's right. He's Tiger-esque. There's no question about it.
No doubt about it. I mean, even at the first playoff event, he was right there and didn't have his A game. Yet, I mean, what did he finish? He finished top 5 for sure. So he's
of course.
Unbelievable what he's doing when he doesn't even have everything working. So if he can get everything working here throughout the playoffs, he'll win it all. There's no doubt about it.
Well, it's going to be fun, and I look forward to it. And Dan, the year so far, I mean, obviously a couple weeks to go, and the President's Cup, which should be kind of exciting. But obviously we've talked about Scottie's year, number 1. Xander, 2 major championships is incredible. DeChambeau's bunker shot on the 72nd hole of Pinehurst, one of the greatest shots ever, not just in the U.S. Open, but major championship history. The Nick Dunlap winning twice, first as an amateur, then a member of the tour. That's never happened in history. And number 5 in my mind for the year, Robert McIntyre, this young guy from Scotland, who was homesick, about to go home and quit the PGA Tour, begs his dad to come over and caddy in Canada. He wins, and then a few weeks later wins the tournament that he dreamed of as a kid, the Scottish Open. I don't know. Even though the TV ratings are, where they are, I think it's been a heck of a year in professional golf.
Yeah, well, obviously you're a golf fan, Doug, and I'm right on board. I am right on board with you. That's why I think golf is so special to watch, especially if you play the game. I think you're going to become a lifelong fan, because you realize what these guys are doing is so hard to do. Just to do, all the storylines that you just described, I think too, make golf this solo endeavor. I don't think there's any sport out there, and you can talk tennis and other times and other sports where you're kind of by yourself and you're battling your own emotions and your own demons per se. But I think the quest that happens on the back 9 of a big championship or a major or a Ryder Cup, when some guy's trying to hold on for his country, I think the sport of golf is just one in itself as far as handling nerves. And I think the other sports are these bursts of physicality, and whether you got a team around you or whether you don't. In tennis, you're kind of you're just kind of reeling off all this physical exertion. Golf is so different. You got to be on for that split second when that club face hits the ball. Is it this way? Is it that way? Is it 1 degree off? I think it's fascinating, and I think the nerves that come into play. When I worked with Johnny Miller, he used to kind of joke around that he had a PhD in chokeology because nerves and pressure in golf is, I think, bigger than any other sport, and we see it on display each and every week. And if it's a guy that's you don't really know a lot about, and he's able to do that, you're like, wow, hats off to this guy. And that's why a lot of these guys get so emotional when they're able to pull it off.
Yeah, well said. Well said. I get emotional when I interview them afterwards, especially those guys where it resurrects their career. Or I love these guys. Now I know where I'm going to play for the next 2 years, right? It's human drama, and you see their wife or girlfriend and kids over there. It's special, Dan. It really is. Of course, I love it. Hey, let's talk a little football. Are you excited? September 7th, you're back in the booth for the Fighting Irish, Dan. They play Northern Illinois, and you're with Coach Garrett. I call him Coach, but I know you're excited about getting back to college football.
I am. It's been a while. I did the Notre Dame package years ago. It's a blast. Notre Dame is pretty special in my household. My wife went to Notre Dame. Her dad went to Notre Dame. Her brother went to Notre Dame. So my biggest critics, Doug, are the people in my house and the people in my family. So I've got them to measure up to. But I'm looking forward to it. When they gave me the opportunity and asked me what I thought about doing Notre Dame football again, I didn't have to think. I didn't have to think more than a couple seconds about it because it's such an incredible brand. It speaks for itself, and to do Notre Dame football on a package that we've had, for 30 plus years now, and it's a privilege, and so I'm looking forward to it. Getting back in the football saddle again, as they say. I'll probably be brushing off a little bit of the rust, but working with Jason Garrett and the crew, it's top notch, and I can't wait for that home opener against Northern Illinois.
It's going to be great. 1988 though, Dan, last time the Irish won the national championship, and in 2012 I was there when they played Alabama, and that was kind of a lopsided deal. But 1988, Dan, wow, you got to go way back. I mean, when Coach Holtz was on the sidelines.
You're right. This is a big year, and I think every year that goes by, people go, "Well, 1988 is the last time." So it's year 3 for Marcus Freeman. And I think any coach kind of in his third year where it's kind of the team has kind of become his players and his system, and he's had a couple years to kind of get used to the whole Notre Dame scene. I think it's a big year for him, and they've got a very, very good team. They're ranked in the top 10 in most polls coming into the season. But I think what bodes well for them too, Doug, is the fact that we've got a new 12-team playoff system.
Yes.
So they were always on pins and needles because they didn't have that conference championship game to kind of maybe either get over the hump or miss it, but they never had that kind of equalizer at the end of the year like the other conference, power conference teams did to kind of solidify their spot in the top 4. Now they've got a little bit of a cushion, not much, but they've got a cushion to where if they lose a game, it's not the end of the world, and they can battle themselves back by having a good back half of the season and getting into that top 12. So I think that's what makes it even more exciting for Notre Dame fans is Marcus Freeman in his third year. It's time to step up and battle for the national championship, get into that 12-team playoff, and then see how far they can go.
I can hear your enthusiasm. I love it. And Coach Freeman is an impressive guy. There was a little clip on Netflix. I think they're going to have some sort of deal on Notre Dame where Coach Freeman was with Coach Holtz, and Coach Holtz was like, "Why do you want to come see me? I mean, I'm yesterday's news, right?" And it was a great scene because there is only one Lou Holtz, as we know.
Oh man, he was the master motivator.
Yes.
I talked to a lot of players that played for him, and they each to a man just adore the guy and just thank him for teaching them more about football, teaching them about life. He had a way, and with young kids, and these college coaches need to be motivators. I mean, Nick Saban was just as much a great coach, not taking anything away from the X's and O's, but these guys at the age these athletes are, some are 17, 18 years old when they come into the program, you can really mold them and you can really have an impact on them. And I think Holtz was one of the best all time at doing that. And I think Marcus Freeman connects with his players too in a different way, but the same impactful way.
Yeah, no doubt. Hey, one more question before I let you go, because You know, it's amazing to think, Dan, your run now, because just a few weeks ago in Paris at the Olympics, you come back home and you're getting ready for this end game for the PGA Tour, which is, you know, one big tournament after another. And then once the President's Cup is over, you're going to roll right into Notre Dame football. I mean, Dan, wow. Do you ever have a day off or what? I know you got to prepare somewhere in there, right?
Yeah, it's been you know, I've been a little nervous with all the Olympics, the lead up. I mean, we had the Open Championship before the Olympics. I've had no time to kind of digest the college football season, so I've started to cram in between the golf events and just, you know, get solidified on the Notre Dame roster. Start taking a look at a few of their opponents as well. It's not easy, but it's a labor of love. It's one of the reasons I got into this whole business. Doug, you the same. You love sports.
Yes. No doubt about it.
I told my three girls, my three children, that if you love what you do, it really isn't work. It's intense at times, and with an Olympic year like we've had this year, you know, you get the trials on top of that, so it really hasn't stopped ever since early in the summer. So, but you know, I'll get through these first couple of Notre Dame home games. We'll do the President's Cup, and then we'll kind of take a breath. And we got a couple more Notre Dame games to do toward the end of the year, and then a couple golf events in December. So I will be cruising after the end of September, after the President's Cup in Royal Montreal.
And let me tell you, I'll see you over the next few weeks. I'll see you. And for our listeners, when I see Dan, he goes by in a blur. He's always in a hurry. And you're in a golf cart. I'm like, man. Hey Dan, and you're right by me.
Yeah, I'm usually on the run, trying to either run the course, get around to the guys, and talk to them, because I'm always always burning time. But I look forward to seeing you out there on the PGA Tour fairways, Doug. It's been a pleasure, man.
Hey Dan, thanks. We'll